It's so crazy that for how much they told us that all the questions would be answered in Season 5, we still have so many questions that don't have answers, like why was Will special to Vecna? And what was their connection? Or why was Vecna so obsessed with clocks, and what was his actual plan in the finale? Like, if the two worlds collided, then what? Do they explode? Does the Mind Flare get released into the real world? And what were the Russians trying to do throughout Seasons 3 and 4, and did they just give up? They literally captured Mind Flare particles at one point. How many women did the military chase down and shoot because they thought they looked like 11? What was Dr. K even trying to do in Hawkins? Why was 11 the only test subject that got stronger powers than Henry? How was she able to push him through a rift into Dimension X? Who was her biological father? Did that have something to do with it? And why was Callie the only child who got different powers from Henry? I have so many more questions that I was expecting them to answer, and it just seems like they didn't have time to, or didn't think they were important enough. I feel like the only really big thing they did answer is what the Upside Down is, and just answering that alone spawned so many different character realization moments and explanation moments to the rest of the cast. They had no time to address all the other questions, like what Vecna's plan at the end of Season 4 was. It seems like whatever he was trying to do last season drastically changed from this season's plan. He was killing teenagers left and right to open up a town-wide crack to the Upside Down, which we thought was going to be used for an all-out war between Hawkins so he could send his Demogorgon armies through the portal anywhere to terrorize the town. We thought he was trying to open up a gate big enough for the Mind Flare to come through like it was trying to do in Season 2, but that wasn't the case either. By doing this and opening up the 4 kill gates, it created the Mega Portal, a permanent gate to Hawkins that was much larger than a standard one, which seemed like there had to be a reason for it. But they never used it for anything large at all. No big monsters like the one Vecna showed Nancy in her vision, not an army of Demogorgons to come through all at once. Vecna himself, all alone, was the only thing that ever came through the portal into Hawkins that he worked so hard through all of Season 4 to create. Was all of that really just to aura farm for this one scene? It's like they forgot all about it. The one thing it got used for was to let the military drive into it, which is ridiculous that that's the only thing we saw this massive gate be used for. Why did it need to be so big? And if you're gonna bring Callie back, why not make her story more interesting? I would have loved to know why she was special. She was the only test subject we know about that somehow got different powers from Henry. All the other children we saw use their powers have telekinesis. They were able to physically push and pull things with their mind. But Callie doesn't have that power. All she can do is create illusions and make people think that they're seeing things. And Henry Creel has shown that he is able to put people in a trance, and is able to go into their mind to search for fears, and then show them fake scenarios in their head. But he's never done it to more than one person at a time, and you can physically see when someone's in his trance. They're frozen and unable to move, which is unlike Callie's power. She can create an illusion in the real world for multiple people to see at the same time. Henry Creel did not have that power. How did she get a new power? In the original comic that first debuted the other MK Ultra children, there were others with even crazier powers. There was one that could control fire, and there was one that could see certain visions of the future. There was one that could manipulate people's emotions. And in the novel, Hopper met the original first experiment, Subject 0, who had the power of psychic persuasion. He could tell people to do whatever he wanted them to do, and they would just do it. It was honestly a crazy power that would have been really hard to beat in the show, but they made all of these non-canon and chose to give every child the same power that Henry Creel had, telekinesis, except for Callie. But why was she different? How did she get a unique power? And on top of that, she somehow was the only child besides 11 to escape the facility successfully, meaning Henry Creel never got to kill her and she survived. Why? All of these questions just completely go unanswered. They did this in Season 1 with Brenner too, for his death fake-out scene. How does he survive? They always leave these gaps in the story that would make for amazing opportunities to explain this really cool answer to this secret or riddle while we're trying to figure out what happened, how or why things happened like they did. The biggest example was the scene of the Demogorgon chasing Will in Season 1. It clearly uses telekinesis to open the lock on the door when demos don't have that ability. And with the Season 1 flashbacks that started Season 5 off, they had the opportunity to clear up this massive question that the fans have been pretty vocal about wanting to know the answer to. They introduced Vecna in Season 4, who has telekinesis, and they should have used the flashbacks to finally answer this massive question that they basically teased would get answered. This was the first season where the opening shot was pointless. In Season 4, it teases Hawkins' massacre. In Season 3, they tease the Russians, but Season 5, they don't do anything but confirm that Vecna was in the shadows pulling the strings in the first season. But you know what? The VR video game that they released after Season 4 already did this, and they did it arguably better. They show Vecna finding Will in Castle Byers, and he sees Eleven talking to him from the finale, and establish that this is when he realizes that Will is the key. I highly recommend watching a playthrough of the game on YouTube. It's a really great addition to the Stranger Things lore that adds 3 hours worth of content behind Vecna and the Mind Flare, with Jamie Campbell Bower and Matthew Modine to voice acting, which is great. I made a breakdown a while ago if you don't want to spend 3 hours watching the full thing, but still. Also, really quick, if you're enjoying the video, subscribe and share it with your other Stranger Things friends. Tell me in the comments your biggest questions you still have from the show, because Season 5 just felt a little bit rushed. It seemed like they forgot all about Season 4 Vecna and his plans and what he accomplished, so they had to spend Season 5 filling everyone in and reminding people what happened as if no one had watched the prior season. I wish they just embraced being a part 2 to Season 4. I wish they picked up on Vecna returning with his army and the Mind Flare trying to launch a full-scale invasion on Hawkins, instead of every time they bring up the past events, they're like, oh yeah, whatever happened to all those spores we ingested? No one knows? Oh well. They should have just ditched the secrecy and the blanket of ignorance around the town not knowing, and just kept the energy and excitement that Season 4 left us with. Because if you go back and rewatch Season 4 before 5, it doesn't really make sense. I feel like them waiting until the last season to explain the powers in universe and where they come from just kind of made things confusing. They did finally explain that Henry got his powers from this rock, and that this rock was somehow infused with the Mind Flare particles that we normally see infecting everyone else, from Demogorgons to the children, and the same with Will in Season 2. But how was the Mind Flare controlling the particles in the cave when there was no portal opened? They established that the only reason the Mind Flare can control anything in Hawkins or the real world is because there's a gate open. Once they close the gate, the Demogorgons will literally stop working and fall to their deaths. Will can't be used as a spy anymore. The meat puppet can't be controlled anymore. The Mind Flare needs a gate to use its connection. But there was no gate opened in the 1950s. How did it control Henry Creel when he was a boy? It just doesn't make sense. They also finally tell everyone who hasn't seen the first Shadow play 3 years ago that all the test subjects, 11, Kali, and all the other numbers, got their powers from Henry. Brenner gave the mothers blood transfusions during pregnancy, which transferred the Mind Flare powers to the children. And then they also show us that Terry Ives had powers in Season 2. Even though she didn't have much brain activity from the bzzz, she was still able to make the lights flicker and communicate in the void to 11. We see the blood coming from her nose, which only happens to people with powers. Does that mean that all the mothers of MKUltra got some residual powers too? The only reason they made Terry Ives like this is because she was the only one to push back and was crazy enough to not let them steal her child. Theoretically, all the other mothers never were an issue and just left the program eventually. But does that mean that all of them have powers now too? Did they do something special to Terry Ives and 11 to make her so powerful that Henry started trying to capture 11 to use her powers? It's like they amplified Henry's original powers, and unlike him, 11 has the ability to open these portals. How does that work? Why? What did they do differently? This seemed to be the plot of the entire show, but they never explain it. Now, real quick, I want to talk about the sponsor of this video, Opera. I've started using their browser recently, and it's completely changed my internet experience. Whether I'm creating the next YouTube video, or going down a rabbit hole of theories, or even just watching content alongside my daily browsing, Opera has blown me away with all their features to help make my life easier. I'm one of those people that have a million tabs open each day, and usually it's a mess, but with Opera's new Tab Islands feature, it's made managing everything so easy. Opera lets you group tabs together in these islands and lets you expand them or collapse them to save space and reorganize them to cater to what you're currently working on, which is a breath of fresh air. And while I'm going back and forth between all of these, of course I'm listening to music. There's a built-in music player that you can actually detach and take outside the browser. I love that it's so small and compact that it doesn't get in the way of anything I'm working on, while also giving me easy access to what I'm listening to. And it works with the 7 streaming services available. Also, when you watch a video, it will automatically pause your music and then unpause once the video's over. over. I really love getting to customize my workspace to make it feel more personal, and with Opera's themes, they really let you go crazy, offering so many ways to make it your own. I love seeing the animated themes they have, just a little something subtle so it doesn't feel so stagnant while I'm working. And recently, they just rebuilt their AI to be faster and smarter to help your internet browsing be more efficient. No extensions to install or creating accounts, you can just use immediately, no strings attached. It can help you translate YouTube videos so you can understand videos not in your native language. Opera can help you have a better internet experience too. If you want to level up your day-to-day efficiency, go click the link in the description to download Opera and try it out today. In Season 1, Vecna takes a kid, Will, to use as his host to spy on Hawkins to find Eleven. Season 2 is the same thing, actually using Will to try to find Eleven. Season 3, Vecna spends all season with the Mind Flare building the meat puppet and says it was all for Eleven and that it's coming for her. Season 4, Vecna realizes his shortcomings, and instead of trying to get Eleven to open a portal for the Mind Flare, he figures out a way to do it himself by making 4 kills that open a giant portal. And then Season 5, they kinda lost the plot and it became about Vecna's 12 children plan to smash the 2 worlds into each other for some reason, but all of the prior 4 seasons was Vecna trying to get Eleven's superior powers to use for himself to open a large gate for the Mind Flare. But we have no idea on why Eleven not only was the only child to get stronger powers, but ones that surpassed even Henry's, who got his straight from the glowy rock. I just need more explanations, but with the show being over, it feels like we're just never gonna get them. Another big one from Season 1 was in one scene, Eleven points to a picture of Will and says his name, and this is before they ever tell her about him. And it's a big question, like the locked door opening that never got answered. There was a theory that in Season 1, when the Demogorgon takes Will, it was actually sent out to find Eleven. They ended up discovering her in close proximity to where Will was taken. And just what if there was a possibility she saw a Demogorgon that got released from the crack she made and hid from it? Will rode by and it got distracted, and that's how Eleven recognized him. The Duffers had to come out in an interview and confirm that Vecna used telekinesis to open the door lock, but he was in the Upside Down. So does he have no limits, or is he able to use his powers through the Demogorgons? If he has no limits, when he's in the Upside Down, why doesn't he use his mind to pick up Eleven and just bring her to him? If he can use powers through the Demogorgons, why doesn't he do that ever again in the entire show? They would be so much more effective if he used his telekinesis through them while they were fighting for him. But even still, we never really get an explanation as to why Will was so important to Vecna. They said they would finally answer it, but the only thing Season 5 ever says is that it was because Will was a child and he was weaker than adults. That means that Vecna's literally just picking on children because adults are harder to beat. And why Will? Why not Dustin or Lucas or Mike? Was it really just because Will had feelings for Mike that scared him? Besides an insecurity, how was Vecna actually going to weaponize that in Season 5 if Will didn't tell everyone himself? Was that Vecna's big secret he was keeping in his back pocket for 5 seasons? I have a personal theory that could explain a little reason why Vecna chose Will now that we know what happened to Henry. Since Season 4, they've been making parallels between young Henry and Will. They were both sensitive children who didn't have a lot of friends and both loved to draw, escaping into their creations. Both were seemingly timid and soft-spoken, and I wonder, while searching for a vessel for the Mind Flare, Vecna saw Will. And maybe, subconsciously, he knew that Will could be a good candidate because Henry himself was a useful vessel for the Mind Flare. Now that they've shown us Henry being a host for the Mind Flare for the last 20 years, he found this mini-me, someone similar to how he used to be. And since the Mind Flare found Henry suitable, there's a good chance that it would also find Will suitable as well. At least, this is my new headcanon reason of why Will was picked. But even still, we have no idea why November 6th has any significance, why Vecna waited 4 years to the day to carry out his big master plan. If he hates schedules and constructs of time so much that he wants to destroy the world, why is he so obsessed with anniversary dates, and why does he use the clock so much to lure the teens? What significance did the grandfather clock have at all? They never explain that either. It's like he just needed a calling card and they hoped we'd forget about it in the 3 years it took to make Season 5. But moving back to Eleven recognizing Will, there was a comic that released that actually shows Will finding Eleven in the woods. After he first gets transported to the Upside Down, he starts to look for a way back and goes to Mirkwood, the spot where he last saw Dustin. And when he's in the woods near where he fell off his bike, he hears people calling out his name, searching for him in the real world. And then he sees Eleven in her Benny's Burgers t-shirt. It also seems like she's glowing here, as if she was possibly in the void, because he calls out to her and she disappears, implying that this is right before Mike finds her. But we have no idea in the show why Eleven knew who Will was. They just never address it again. When you rewatch a show, you get all of these questions that you realize we never get answers to. In Season 3, they show the Russians, in Russia, starting to open a portal to the Upside Down. And when they do, vines from the Upside Down start to seep through the crack. But why are there vines here? The Upside Down is a wormhole surrounding just Hawkins. And the Duffers said that they knew this back in Season 1. So why was there upside down vines at the Russian portal? It should have just burned a hole in the rock. Were they implying that the Russians almost just accidentally opened their own wormhole to the abyss from Russia? Because that would have been crazy. I do wish we got a little more closure with the Russians. They literally went into the Upside Down, captured 20 Demogorgons, and transported them back to Russia in cryo chambers. What were they going to do with them? Use them as soldiers and see if they could control them? Or just let them loose on their enemies? And not only that, but they successfully captured live mind flare particles. This ancient interdimensional monster that's been terrorizing Hawkins for 20 years now. The Russians captured it and put it in a prison cell. That is crazy. I want to know how they did that and what they were doing with them. How much more did they learn than the Americans? Some other honorable mentions that I would love to have gotten answers to are, what were the eggs that Hop and Joyce found in the Upside Down? We see a Demogorgon larva be harvested in Will and grow from a larva to a full-grown Demo, and he never needs an egg. So what was the original intention for these eggs? Also in Season 4, the question of will Vecna kill Max was literally the plot of the entire season. They build up so much emotions and show her writing out letters in case she does die. But not just one, but individual letters for everybody. Lucas, Dustin, even one for Steve. I want to know what those letters say so badly. They would have been so emotional to hear Max narrating reading them out, just like Hopper's letter to Elle at the end of Season 3. Which, speaking of, where was Max's mom? Why cut her out of the show? You can actually see her off to the side at the end of Season 4 here in the hospital room. But they chose to cut her from the scene. Why? Why can't we see that Max's mom loves her? We can see Jonathan is here to support her, but not her own mother? She's not in all of Season 5 too. Speaking of missing characters, what happened to Dr. Owens? Is he dead? I feel like I need to know. He fought so hard for Eleven and Joyce and Hopper when nobody else would. He tried to save Bob's life. We just get no closure? And the same goes for Susie. She directly helped them save the world twice, and we get no mention of her in Season 5? Also, how did Will create the tunnels in Season 2 while he was sleeping? And why? Why did Vecna make Will do that? Are they saying he had expertise in digging tunnels, or the layout of Hawkins' hotspots, or just imagining things? I don't get why this is shocking or important. Why does it matter? I don't get why they revealed this. They kind of just dropped the bomb and then hope it was enough to shock you and move on. Next, what happened to the Demogorgon in Joyce's freezer, please? This would have been such a funny, small follow-up to do. The Duffers said in an interview that they ended up burying it out back with their dog that disappeared, but I don't know. And then lastly, why did Max need Holly to escape Vecna's mind? What is stopping her in the last 2 years from venturing out on her own and going back to her body? She was brave enough to scavenge for all of these knickknacks in other memories or in his house. Why does she need Holly to find the red room? Because when they do escape, they use Derek to distract Henry and then leave him trapped here. Was Max going to do that to Holly? Was she going to be bait for Vecna just so Max could escape alone and leave Holly here just like they did with Derek? I don't understand. Okay, and finally, Derek is also stronger than Vecna in his own mind. Just let that sink in. Thank you so much for watching the video. Tell me in the comments what your biggest questions are. Peace.